Hello, my paranormal peeps, and welcome back to another paranormal podcast. My name is Matt Harvey. I am the host of the Paranormal Podcast, along with my wife, Amanda. We run Deep Woods Paranormal. We've been researching the paranormal for almost 30 years together, and we research everything paranormal: Bigfoot, UFOs, ghosts, hauntings, demons, lake monsters, crypto creatures, and so on and so forth. So on these podcasts, what we do is we basically talk about our experiences when we go out to locations. Sometimes we'll have some guests on to talk about their experiences at locations and stuff like that. And sometimes we'll have on some experts to talk about different things like UFOs or Bigfoot or whatever, and kind of tell us their stories. So anyways, on this podcast, we're going to be talking about the old jail investigation we just did. We've done several old jails here recently. I think we've done 3. So this is the third one. This will be on our YouTube channel here probably in about a month. It'll probably air in about a month, and you guys can go in there and look. There might be one long video or multiple shorter videos because people seem to like the shorter videos anyways. So let's talk about the history. The jail was built in 1876, I believe, and essentially is the only building that is left from this area. Unfortunately, because of fires and flooding and other severe weather, tornadoes and stuff that have come through this area, the jail is the only thing left that was originally there. There were other structures. There was a whole town. This area was a whole town. There was a courthouse. There was homes. There were other stores and other things at this location. But unfortunately, when the current company that runs it took it over, they essentially were left with the jail. So they brought in some other structures, which is really cool. They brought in an old post office. They brought in an old double schoolhouse, and that's very unique to find a double schoolhouse, and an old train depot. And there's a couple other buildings on the property, but they're not really accessible. So what happened at this jail? Why is this place haunted or active or whatever you want to call it? This jail was a place where a lot of the inmates were not treated very well. There was over 300 hangings in the jail and on the property. And yes, I said inside the jail. There's actually a old trap door that they've covered up inside the jail, where they actually used to hang people right next to the cells inside the jail. So, and then there was a bunch of viewing windows for people to stand outside and watch the hanging. So if that's not traumatic enough, and then some of the spirits or people that were basically brought to this prison were brought there under false pretenses and may not have been given a full, I don't know what you want to call it, a full, actual, real chance to prove their innocence. Let's put it that way. Anyways, so this housed, it was opened all the way till the early 1980s. The jail was, and then essentially kind of sat dormant for a while, and the current company that owns it basically is restoring it back to where it was before. It's really cool. They've done a really, really good job. They've come in and really cleaned it up and brought a lot of old stuff that would have been in the jail back into the jail. They've set it up so that there's articles everywhere, and you can really learn a lot about the history. The historians that basically work there have done a really good job of finding out what really happened, and brought in pieces that actually fit with the time period. And so it's a museum. You can go check it out during the day. It's up in Cold Spring, and yeah, just a really cool location. But there's not just that. There's the jail, there's the old schoolhouse, there's the post office, and the train depot. So you're asking, okay, how did it go? Well, if you don't know, if you haven't watched our show from before, our team went up there. We had about 8 people, and we went up there, investigated previously. We had a lot of activity. We had a lot of things happen. And what I'll do is I'll talk about each location and what happened piece by piece, if you will. So let's start with the old jail, because that's basically the draw of this place. It's cool. It's a really cool jail. It's got basically the family quarters down below. The warden or the sheriff would have lived below, and then basically he would have checked. He or the wife would have checked people in over time. They would have been brought to the jail, checked in, taken upstairs, put in the cell. From what I understand, over time, closer to the late 80s and 90s, there weren't any more hangings. So a lot of the prisoners basically had lighter sentences and were allowed to basically work downstairs, make food, and all that other stuff too. So, yeah. Did I say there was over 300 hangings, not just in the jail, but on this property? Yeah. So, let's start with our investigation of Men in Mines, most recent one here. This was a couple weeks ago. We started in the old jail. We started down below, and we kept hearing things downstairs in the living quarters that would have been, where basically the warden or the sheriff would have lived. Previously, we heard what sounded like a typewriter, and Amanda, I think, heard that too. I couldn't hear it. But as Rebecca, who is the person that basically runs the jail, and I were standing there, we were kind of chit-chatting, and all of a sudden I start hearing what sounds like walking upstairs. I'm like, do you hear that? And then Amanda came in, and finally, towards the end of the night, she started hearing it too. We were downstairs. I was just changing out some batteries, and she heard a bunch of noise coming from upstairs. Like somebody was walking around. I thought I heard what sounded like an old jail cell close, and those jail cells are left open on purpose because if you get locked in, there's no way out. They have to call a locksmith and come get you. So we went upstairs. As we were going upstairs, the last time we were there, I was walking upstairs. I was leading myself up the stairs, and I had about 3 or 4 people behind me, and as you walk up the stairs, there's a long hallway. There's the cells on the right, and then there's solitary confinement. The cell for solitary is basically just by itself. It's straight ahead. And I saw a shadow, and it darted left and then made another left and went down another hallway and disappeared. Well, I didn't realize that as I'd seen that, I reacted. I went, whoa. And there's a voice that says something, and I'll let you guys go back and listen to it on the YouTube channel. You can find our old Cold Spring investigation at this old jail. I think it was last year. So yeah, you guys can go back and watch that video. But yeah, so as we were walking up there, just got this feeling of something didn't want us there. It just felt like, you need to leave, you need to get out. I think one of the actual first piece of evidence ever caught at this jail was a little kid. I think he was about 10 years old, and he had his mom's phone. And so he was just walking around, playing around with the phone, turned the video recorder on, and caught a shadow going down the hallway, the same place I saw mine. And then went to show his mom. His mom saw it. A couple other people saw it. And then they went to try and transfer it to a computer. Gone. Just disappeared. No trace of it. They don't know what happened to it. So yeah, I mean, similar experience to mine, which is cool. Validates his experience, validates my experience. And then so as we were walking up, because of that, I wanted to set a camera at the top of the stairs. So I pulled out I pulled out a tripod and put the camera on there. I put 2 IR lights, one on either side. These are very bright IR lights, so you can see very well. And I left it. And as I was setting that up, both Amanda and I both got the same feeling. Something wanted to push me down the stairs. It didn't want me up there. It wanted me gone. So, like a good investigator, we just pushed on. We were locked down in this location, so we couldn't leave anyways. But yeah, we essentially stood there for a few more minutes and didn't see anything, but it just felt like something really was angry at me for some reason. Now, I've always been polite. I'm always very professional when I'm on investigations. I've never threatened well, I take that back. On normal ghost hunts, I've never threatened anything. I've never told anything it need to leave. I never, never try to cross anything over unless the client tells us to. So I don't know why this thing was so aggressive towards me. It just didn't feel, I guess it felt threatened in some way, which I didn't want to make it feel threatened. We're always very positive and always very, we just want to communicate with you and stuff like that. So I don't understand where that hostility came from. The last time we were there, it was kind of the same thing. I felt like something just didn't want us there. And so, it's same entity probably. It's just an old grouchy entity. I'm sure something really terrible happened to this poor entity. And I feel bad for him. I really do. If it is a male or female, I feel bad for them. I feel like, that's really sad that they're stuck at this location or whatever's going on, and they're just frustrated and they don't really want anybody to bother them. And I understand that, and we're walking into their home essentially and asking a bunch of questions and trying to get them to communicate with us. So we basically went to the right, went down another area because we just felt like, if we just left the camera running, things would be fine. Unbeknownst to us, as soon as I walked away, the camera turned off. So I went back when we were done investigating in the other area, which I'll talk about in just a second, and it was off. Replugged it back in, put an external battery charger on it just to make sure it had a good charge. And then the IR light slowly but surely died. So I changed out the batteries on the IR lights, turned them back on. They were fine. I could see clearly down the hallway. We'll see. We have not broken down all of the video yet from this investigation, so we'll see what happens. You guys will probably watch that you can see that on our YouTube channel. You'll see this investigation on the YouTube channel. Amanda and I decided to go into one of the cells, and unfortunately, we've lost a very dear friend. Clay, who is the caretaker for the jail, unfortunately passed away last year. We didn't know. He was an awesome guy. This guy was an amazing guy, very knowledgeable of the paranormal, really knew what he was doing. And so we essentially got to investigate with him last time. If you want to go back and watch that show, we'll be doing a memorial on our next show for him. But yeah, I mean, it was really sad. So we wanted to see if he was still there. And so we made contact with possibly somebody else first. We were in the cell and nothing really happened at first. And then the K2 started to light up and there was no power up there. So there's no energy source for them. I brought an EM pump. I put it way far away so it wouldn't interfere with those K2 meters. If you don't know what a K2 meter is, it's basically just a little EMF device that basically is very, very, very sensitive. It has 5 little lights on the end. One always stays glowing on, and then the other 4 lights essentially will light up if there's some kind of electrical interference with the device. So that's what happened. Those started lighting up. First it started lighting up for Amanda, and then it started lighting up for me. We asked a lot of questions. We had quite a bit of information come through. We were recording audio, doing EVP sessions, and then we flipped on the spirit box. And I don't think we got a lot through the spirit box. I think we got a couple of things, but mainly they wanted to answer our K2 meters. They wanted to use the K2 meters to communicate. We do think we did establish contact with Clay. We asked him if he was okay, if he's doing all right, if he's happy, and he seems to be. So you guys can see that all over on our YouTube channel once that video comes out. So we were in there for about an hour and a half. It got really warm. We went back downstairs, and as we went downstairs, we kept hearing noises coming from the stairs. So I had to go back up and check that one camera that I left facing solitary, right? Both the IR lights were out. Camera was still running, but it was almost like pitch black, so you couldn't see anything. Lots of malfunctions in the jail with gear. And that's typical of I don't want to say haunted location, and it is in haunted locations too, but this place, I don't think this place is totally haunted. I think it's active, the jail itself. Other locations, other buildings in this location are possibly haunted. But yeah, whatever's up there really just wants to kind of be left alone and stuff like that most of the time. Sometimes they'll communicate with us. Previously, when we were there, we had an EVP of "Get back in your cell," and it was a very Texan style accent, and it was just the three of us. None of us have a Texas accent, so it was pretty interesting to hear that. And then we got a couple other things when Eric and I were up there. We had some K2 hits, and I don't think we ever used the spirit box up there, but we did have quite a few K2 hits in the jail area, upstairs and downstairs. Downstairs seems like a happier haunt than upstairs. It seems like something up there is just pretty grumpy. So when I went back up there, one of the IR lights actually has a little flip off button that had been flipped off. I know it was on when I started the recording. So I flipped it back on, and the other battery on the other side and the other IR light had been drained again. Brand new batteries right out of the package. So I replaced that with another IR light that had fresh batteries. And, we left it for probably about 2.5 hours just running after that, because we went and investigated the other buildings. So we started out in the post office. And last time we were in the post office, we made contact with a woman. And we asked if you worked there, and she said yes. And she really likes still being there. She feels like she's still working and doing her job. And so we asked her lots of questions, and we got lots of answers through either the K2s lighting up or through the spirit box. And again, you can watch that on our YouTube channel. Go look back for the old jail investigation. So Amanda and I went in there, and we were sitting in there, and it was pretty warm. It was probably about 80 degrees inside the building right now because of the heat wave we just had. And so essentially we're asking questions, and we got a couple of K2 hits right off the bat. And then I said, "Do you want to hear your voice?" And so I pulled out and then lit up for yes. And so I pulled out the spirit box and set it down, and pretty much stepped away from it so I wasn't interfering with it in any way, shape, or form. And essentially Amanda had heard something outside. So she walked around the corner back out to the front. We were in the back of the post office where they would have worked. And so she walked back around the front. And as she walked by the front where the window was, the woman said, "Please come back to the other side of the window, ma'am." Excuse me. Hiccup in the middle of my laughing there. But yeah, that was crazy. I mean, she just full on, clear as day said that. And I started laughing. You can probably hear me on the recorder laughing. But yeah, it said a couple other things. She said a couple other things while we were in there, and that was pretty cool. So we had some activity in there. After a while, after Amanda heard that noise, I went and checked on her to make sure she was okay. And she said, we should probably move on. So we went over to the old schoolhouse. And so when we were in the schoolhouse, Amanda was immediately drawn to the left side of the schoolhouse. It's a double schoolhouse, which is very unique. I mean, they didn't really make very many of these. Again, all these buildings that I'm talking about were built in the late 1800s, and they were transferred here, except for the jail, basically to help rebuild this little town. It's a little ghost town, essentially, was what it is. And so the schoolhouse on the right side, when you first walk in, it's set up just like the old schoolhouse would be. Again, the company that runs this place has done a really good job. The historians have done a really good job of getting donations and setting things up like they would have been back in the day. And there's a mannequin, of course. I didn't tell Amanda. And the first thing she sees is that mannequin. She's like, "Oh," which was cool. Kind of, took the wind out of her a little bit. And so she got scared by that. So after that, we walked over to the other side where we had all the activity, the previous investigation. Both Eric and I had a lot of activity over there with the K2s. And then also the other group, Christy, was over on that side with her group. Christy, Elena, Eric, the other Eric in our group were all over on that side. And she set a K2 against the typewriters. There's a bunch of old typewriters that they had lined up. I think there must have been at least 10 of them lined up straight in a row on top of this display case. And so she set one there. And as she set it there, it started to light up. And so they asked questions and got some answers, with it lighting up for yes or leaving it in one light for no. And essentially what happened was she went to reach for it. And I've reviewed this video so many times. I've reviewed it in slow motion. I've reviewed it frame by frame. I can actually see her hand reach up for the K2. And as she gets to the K2 about an inch away, the thing just flies off. It literally just shot down. And it was leaning, sitting on the counter against this thing about an inch on the counter away from the edge. And then it just basically pulls out and flies down. So I set a couple of K2s against, during the last investigation, I set a couple of K2s on top of there as well. And I started touching the typewriters, and the K2s went absolutely nuts. They lit up all the way across. Like something's like, how dare you touch my typewriters? Something's very, very attached to those typewriters. And whatever it is very intelligent, very knowledgeable what's going on, can understand and comprehend what we were asking, what we were saying. And unfortunately, the video from that, unfortunately, when Eric and I were over there, just essentially disappeared. I don't know what happened to it. I went to download it and it just was gone. It disappeared, across from transferring it from the camera to the computer. So I know it was on there because I watched it on the video camera after it happened. I reviewed it several times. I'm like, did you see that? And I showed everybody. It was pretty cool. So this time I was more careful. I think I was actually holding the camera, and I had a full spectrum camera kind of facing there just in case as a backup. So a lot of technical issues happening as we investigated the jail. And that's very typical of any place that is either active or haunted or has any kind of activity at all. A lot of times they'll mess with it. If they're intelligent, they'll mess with your electronic devices, maybe to pull energy from it, or maybe just to basically, mess with you, or they just don't want you to get them on camera, one of the three, or there might be another reason. So we were in there, and I set like I said, I set the K2 against the typewriters on this display case, and we're kind of looking around. Amanda and I are kind of walking around, looking around, and I said, I just turned on the spirit box because I wanted to give them a voice and see if they could communicate through that. And I said, are you going to knock that K2 off there again? And it said, not this time, as clear as I'm talking to you right now. That was really cool. And then Amanda walked back outside because it was just too warm in there for us. We were, like I said, we were drenched by the time we left. It was just too hot, too humid. It wasn't the heat, it was the humidity. It was like 80 to 90% humidity during this heat wave, and it just felt 10, 15 degrees warmer than it actually was. So as she walked outside, I went to go check on her, and the spirit dogs just start squawking, just talking. This female voice keeps coming through, and I think that a couple of spirits were actually having a conversation with each other. I think they were talking about us, but anyways, I went back in and grabbed the camera, and as I was standing there, they answered a few more questions through the spirit box, and then I said, okay, I'm gonna leave you guys alone. Thank you for communicating with us. We'll be back. And as I was kind of trying to do, I was trying to wrap things up in a positive way, so that the next time we go, they can remember us, and they can say, okay, they were nice to us, and they didn't do anything to try and harm us or scare us or make us feel uncomfortable or anything like that. So lastly, we went into the old train depot, and the other group from if you watch this investigation, the other group had a lot of activity in there. They had more than Eric and I did. They had a lot of K2 hits and stuff like that, and they possibly got some EVPs too, which was really cool. They possibly made contact with a conductor, and I think somebody said they saw a shadow in the window where you buy the tickets. So Amanda and I went over there, left the door open just to let some air in. It's a nice small building, so it wasn't real hot. It was about the size of the office here. I think it's 14 by 14 or something, or 14 by 10 or whatever it is. Anyways, so she and I went over there and we were kind of asking questions based off of what we got last time. And I said, is there a conductor here? And the K2 lit up a little bit. And I thought I saw somebody standing in the window as well, by where you buy the tickets. I was like, oh, and as I walked towards it, it went to the right away from us. It actually is my right, looking straight at the window. It's a left, essentially. Darted back there, and we thought we heard some noises. And we turned the spirit box on, and they did come through a few times and talk to us. I don't want to give away the whole show because I want you guys to go enjoy watching that and seeing what we caught. But so we've got some cool news regarding this location. The owners and the historians have said you can come in and start doing public investigations here, where we can bring the general public in, ask them for $20 donation, most of which is going to probably go to the jail, because we want to make sure that jail continues to stay open and continues to be able to do the things that they need to do. I'm thinking it's probably going to be a 2 or 3 hour investigation. You guys will get to use all the gear that we use, cameras, K2s, audio recorders. We'll teach you how to use all that spirit box, and we'll basically go through the jail. We'll go through the old post office if we have a small enough group, and then we'll go through the old schoolhouse, and then we'll go to the old train depot, and that'll probably take about 2 to 3 hours. So for, the price, less than the price of a movie, you can basically go out with us and really investigate a location and really kind of learn things. And then we'll kind of talk to you about the history and stuff like that. So it's a really cool location, really cool opportunity if you're, in our area, in the Bryan area, College Station area, Houston, Cold Springs, Huntsville, any around that area, or you're just traveling and you want to do an investigation, you can go onto our deepwoodsparanormal.com and you'll be able to find tickets there. We'll have some teasers up, videos up there, so you guys can kind of see what's going on. And then, of course, we'll have links to our shows that we did there for you guys to see. So thank you guys very much for listening. We really appreciate it. I don't know how long this podcast is, but thank you guys again for listening. Also on Friday now, we will be releasing Bigfoot only paranormal podcast, talking about Bigfoots in different states and basically all around the world. We're going to talk about everything Bigfoot, sightings, experiences. We'll talk about locations. We'll talk about what makes a good location. We might actually use a map. If you're watching this on YouTube, I might have an actual map as my background instead of our logo, and you'll be able to actually see. We'll zoom into places and we'll talk about why these locations are possibly a good location to go try and experience some kind of Bigfoot activity. So anyways, thank you guys for listening, and you guys have a great day, and we appreciate you.